What's up, everybody? Your boy Ryan Thomas here live once again on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast, bringing you another edition of the Thomas Take, and much better day today than it was yesterday. Yesterday I had to go to the hospital. I almost passed out due to severe dehydration, apparently. So I'm home now, doing much better. Have the next few days off of work, and I'm just going to use it to recuperate, get my energy back, get all my ducks in a row. But man, my arms are killing me. I had to have blood work done. The blood work was good. My blood pressure was a little high, but I had also had a massive migraine yesterday, which has now gone away, as of this morning. So very happy to say that that's over. Very happy to say that I'm back on the mic for another edition of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. And everybody that stays in tune with the show, obviously when the Alex Smith trade broke out a few days ago, the one question that was on everyone's mind is what's next for Kirk Cousins? What could be next for Captain Kirk, as I like to call him? And there's a lot of, obviously, suitors for a quarterback like Kirk Cousins. Buffalo would be one. The Jets would be another. Denver, Cleveland, Arizona, maybe even Minnesota. There's plenty of suitors for Kirk Cousins. There's no doubt about that. One of those suitors is no longer Washington, given that Washington made the trade for Alex Smith. So in my personal opinion, there's so many Bills fans that want to, reach out to me, which is awesome, and they say, "Well, I think we should go after Kirk Cousins." Okay, I've already kind of talked about that, but I want to lay out which team I believe is the perfect fit for Kirk Cousins. And let me just start off right from the get-go. I believe in my heart of hearts that the best fit for Kirk Cousins is Cleveland, Ohio. And let me tell you why. Hugh Jackson, the Cleveland Browns head coach, is staring 1-31 in the face. The Cleveland Browns have proven not once but twice that they do not want to dip their toes in the rookie waters. They didn't in the first round in 2016, and they didn't in the first round in 2017. They passed on Carson Wentz by trading out of that second overall selection in the 2016 NFL Draft, and they passed on a quarterback, obviously, with their second first-round pick that they had in the first round of this past year's draft, and trading it to Houston, and Houston was able to move up and get Deshaun Watson. So they passed on Carson Wentz and Deshaun Watson the last 2 years. Now, you carry that over into this year's draft. This year, they have the first overall pick once again in the draft, and they have the fourth overall pick in the draft. So, to say the least, they have a huge advantage going into this draft. They have 2 firsts, 2 of the top 5 picks in the draft. They also have multiple seconds, and I believe they have multiple thirds as well, if I'm not mistaken. So, once again, they come into this draft with a bevy of picks, and Cleveland Browns fans are curious as to whether or not the Browns will draft a quarterback with one of those 2 first-round draft choices. Cleveland has proven it to me that they do not want to dip their toes in the rookie waters based on the points that I just stated. And in my current mock draft, the best player available in this draft, in my opinion, is Saquon Barkley. I think the Browns need a home run hitter, need a guy that can get the ball and run it into the end zone, and that is Saquon Barkley. He adds a true offensive juggernaut dimension to any offense that he will compete for, in this upcoming NFL season. And they also have a need at corner, given that Joe Hayden is out of the picture, and they really struggled defensively in the secondary this past season. So I have Barkley going 1 and Minkah Fitzpatrick going 4th to the Cleveland Browns. I also threw out a scenario in there where the New York Jets would move up from 6 to 4, and try to make that happen for a quarterback, being that Cleveland wouldn't be that interested. But that's just a scenario that I laid out there. But let's just say they stay pat, they stay where they are, they take Barkley first, they take Fitzpatrick fourth, and they sign Kirk Cousins to a 4 or 5 year deal. I think it's a perfect deal for them because they're getting a quarterback that is in his prime. They're getting a quarterback that has started games in the National Football League. They're getting a quarterback that has passed for 4,000, 4,000, and 4,000 yards the last 3 seasons, also having over 25 touchdown passes. And there's a lot of fans out there that know that Cleveland is a bad team. They say, well, they're 1-31, they suck, they're this, they're that. Eventually, Cleveland is not going to suck. With all the picks that they've made, with all the talent that they've added to their team, I thought last year their first round went very well. They got Myles Garrett, they got David Njoku, and they got Jabril Peppers. I think those are 3 solid players for the Cleveland Browns. Garrett had some injuries. Njoku didn't really get the ball a whole lot due to the uncertainty that they had at quarterback. They did draft Deshaun Kaiser in the second round. Kaiser, a guy that I know very well. Being that I'm a big Notre Dame Fighting Irish fan, I personally thought that Kaiser should have stayed in the draft another season, came out a little bit too early for my taste, and that is why we saw the struggles that he had. So maybe this year 2, he could be a little bit better, but why not bring in the best guy that you can possibly bring in? And add in the fact, obviously, that I mentioned Hugh Jackson has gone 1-31 with the Cleveland Browns. At some point, Hugh Jackson has got to turn it around or he's going to lose his job. These last 2 years aren't necessarily his fault, but year 3 is when every owner and every GM and every scout and every player and your fan base expects it to turn around whether you believe you have real talent or not. And post this draft with the way I would run things, if I was the Bills, if I was the Browns GM, I'd go after Kirk Cousins, sign him to a $25 million a year deal for 4 years, and then I go out and get Saquon Barkley first overall. I go out and get Minkah Fitzpatrick. I just filled 3 cornerstone pieces on my roster: quarterback, running back, and corner. 3 huge positions of need, and I have talent at the wide receiver position. I got Corey Coleman, I got David Njoku at tight end, and I got, last but not least, Josh Gordon, who is back and I think is really going to flip the script on his career, hopefully, as long as he, gets his stuff together and stays out of trouble. I really think that things can really get interesting for him. So, all that being said, I really think that Kirk Cousins would become the best fit for Cleveland. You look at Denver. Denver is more inclined to stick with what they have, just let them figure it out, find out, where they're at in terms of Simeon, Lynch, or even Chad Kelly. And many people can laugh at that and scoff at that, but the reality is if Chad Kelly didn't have the injury to his wrist and or the character issues at Clemson and Ole Miss, he realistically wouldn't have been Mr. Irrelevant. He probably would have been a Mr. First-round pick. So, talent-wise, sky is the limit for him, but he's got to get his head right. There is a trade that I have pondered for Denver that I want to talk about in the next segment of the Thomas Take. But, Denver, I kind of put a question mark next to them. I don't know if John Elway is, really in love with Kirk Cousins. We'll find out. He definitely could be a suitor. Buffalo, I don't see them as a team willing to fork over $25 million a year for a quarterback that is 30 years old. I see Buffalo as a team that's looking to get their fresh, young, long-term answer at quarterback that they haven't had since the days of Jim Kelly. And then, there's teams like Minnesota, I've heard, and Arizona, and I think the further you go down the list, outside of the Browns and the Jets, I think are the 2 front runners right now for Kirk Cousins, in my personal opinion. I think the Browns and the Jets make the most sense in terms of teams that are going to go after Kirk Cousins. And you really look at the state of the division, the AFC North. Cleveland's got a lot of young talent. They would have a lot of young talent. They would have a quarterback in his prime. and you look at their division with Pittsburgh, Big Ben is getting a little bit long in the tooth. He's knocking on the retirement door. Is Le'Veon Bell coming back? I truly don't know. And Antonio Brown is Antonio Brown. So they're in a state of transition. The Ravens are in a state of transition. The Bengals are in a state of transition. This move with the Cleveland Browns going out and getting a quarterback like Kirk Cousins could allow them to get over the hump. I think their offensive line is there. I think their defense is slowly but surely getting better, but I think Kirk Cousins could lead them to a 7-9, 8-8 record, barring any injuries around him. If, on paper, I think that's what they could do. And that would definitely save Hugh Jackson's job. I don't think the owner of the Browns and or the GM of the Browns are thinking playoffs for this next upcoming season. So that's my take on Kirk Cousins, the perfect fit, the Cleveland Browns. Take care, everybody.